Okay, in this video, I'm going to go through the solution to the triangle problem, the enumeration of triangles, that was chapter 7, problem 1, for our in-class work. Okay, so this one I'm not going to program it live, but I'm going to go through my solution. We're going to talk about it a little bit. Okay, most of this was straightforward, but there was a trick. Okay, not a trick, something you have to think about a little bit. So it starts with the enumeration itself, which is relatively straightforward. We have the enum keyword. We're calling it triangle type. Okay. And then these are the values that it can take. It can take scalene, isosceles, equilateral, or no triangle at all. Okay. Note that I can't put a space there, or it's a string and it's a whole different thing. Okay. Also note oddly the semicolon at the end of the enum. Okay. Then I'm going to create a function called triangle shape, which the book tells us to create. It's going to take 3 sides, integers. Some of you made it doubles. That's not a problem, although sometimes comparing things that are doubles gets a little complicated because of the way that C++ or any computer stores numbers. But I just kept it as ints. And it's going to return a triangle type. Okay, so again, it's important to realize, and I said this in class and said it to a lot of you, when we create this enumeration, it's just like an int or a double. So it can be a return type. Okay. So then in our int main, pretty straightforward. I'm going to create S1, S2, S3 as integers. I think that the program description said to ask for the sides in int main, send it to this triangle shape to set the triangle type, and then print it out from int main. So that's what I'm doing. Okay. I'm also creating a triangle type because if I call the triangle shape function, just call it, it's going to create the triangle type object, but not do anything with it. Okay, so I'm going to return it. So I need something to catch that return. The other option, as always, would be to send a triangle type as a pass by reference, but I have to have one anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and create one called my triangle. Okay, so I'm then going to go through and print out triangle classifier, all that, enter the 3 sides. Okay, so in this case, and again, I've said in another video that I think a lot of you are doing the one line separated by a space thing too much, and it's overwhelming to users. In this case, it makes perfect sense to do it. But if you want to do side 1, side 2, side 3, it's up to you. Certainly not a problem. That's a preference. Okay. I'm then going to call the triangle shape with those 3 sides, and I'm then going to save that as my triangle. Okay. I can now do a switch on my triangle. And what I was doing was a 0, 1, 2, 3, because that's how I've always done it. But somebody pointed out, and I tried it and it works. We can just say the scalene, the isosceles, the equilateral, or the no triangle, and that works as well. And then that's going to print out whatever we want it to do. Although spelling it correctly is or typing it correctly, probably a good thing. Okay. So when it comes to this triangle shape, determine what kind of triangle it is. Okay, so there's something a little bit tricky here. So let me go over what some of you did that's not going to work in all cases. Okay, so let's just say you're going to let's put a block here. If your algorithm, you're going to say basically if, and then do the blah 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 on the sides. So we're basically going to say, is it a triangle? Okay, in an if statement. If it is, set it to be a triangle. Okay, if it's not, then set it to be a no triangle. Okay, and then we're going to say, is it an equilateral? Okay, so are all the sides equal? Okay, then we're going to say, is it an isosceles? Okay, and then finally, if it is a triangle but it's not any of those, then it's going to be a scalene. Okay. The trouble with doing this, if you enter something like, then these are all ifs for some people. 10, 1, 1. Okay. 10, 1, 1 is not a triangle. Okay. So you say it's not a triangle. Okay. When you go to here, are all the sides equal? No, they're not. Do you go here? Are any two sides the same? Well, they are, right? Side two and side three are both one. So if you keep these on a level if, all through a series of ifs, then it's going to say, after it said it wasn't a triangle, now it's going to say it's an isosceles. And you're going to print either both, or you're going to print that it's an isosceles, which it's not. It's no triangle at all. Okay. So the way we're going to have to structure this, we're going to have an if statement on is it a triangle? Okay. And then we're going to have an else not or else no triangle. So if sides make it a triangle. Okay, that if. Okay. And the else says there's no triangle. Okay, but inside of this if, we have to have another if. Okay. If all sides equal. Okay. Then we said it's an isosceles. Okay. Else if two sides equal. Okay, we're gonna set it to be no, the first is equilateral. If two sides are equal, we'll say it's an isosceles. Else, we're going to say it's a scalene. Okay, because we already know it's a triangle. Okay, so by putting in the nested if statements, you're going to make it work in all cases. Okay, so some of you didn't, and you were having trouble with that. Okay, there are other ways to do it. It's just more complicated. You have to make sure it is a triangle and it's an isosceles, or it is a triangle and it's a equilateral. Okay, and again, we have to ask if it's an equilateral first. And we can't have that on multiple ifs, because if you say if all three sides are equal, then the enumeration type there is going to, the triangle type is going to be equilateral. That's true. But then if you go with an if two sides are equal, and if three sides are equal, two sides are equal, then it's going to be also going to be an isosceles, which is the second one you ask. So that's what it will become. Okay. So it's important that you ask in the correct order. You have to ask it if it's an isosceles first, and if it is, it's got to be an else if, not an if. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. So let's look at the code here. And again, when I do these videos before the homework is strictly due or the in-class is due, I don't mind that you watch them and modify your programs, but it's important that you understand what you turn in. And I could ask you, I could say, hey, that program looks like just like mine. That's okay, but why does it work? So you have to understand why that works and be able to answer that if I ask. Okay. And I have in the past. Okay. So that's the printout. So let's look at our function that actually does this. Okay. So we're starting here with our test to see if it is a triangle. Okay, that's an outer if. So if side one plus side two is greater than side three, and all that same, all the three permutations there, if all of these are true, then I can say here that we have a triangle. Okay, now it's just a matter of testing for what type it is. Okay, so if we look at the else to this, the else is down here. If that if is not true, then we have no triangle. Okay, and we're done. We return my triangle. Okay, and we're fine. Okay. Inside of in fact, what I will often do when I'm writing a program, I would just not have any of this. I wouldn't do any of this yet. I would just have these two conditions. Okay. I would just print out is a triangle, print out not a triangle. Get that working first. Okay. And then go back and add the rest of it. Okay. But we have the rest of it here, so we don't worry about that. So let's get rid of this guy down here. Okay, that's how I would test it first. I always test my nested loops that way. Okay, so nested structures. So once we're here, so once we're to these comments, we know we have a triangle. We're going to check to see if side one is equal to side two and side two is equal to side three, then we have an equilateral. Okay. The else if. So if this is true, we're done, right? We hit this, goes below the else, down to this else, which we don't hit either. We return the triangle. So this gets us, if this is true, we're done all the way. Okay. We only want to set my triangle one time. If you set it more than once, when you got an error. Okay. Now we're checking to see if side one is equal to side two, or side two is equal to side three, or side one is equal to side three. If any of those are true, then it's an isosceles triangle. Done. Okay. The else, if it's not either of those, but we know it's a triangle because we're inside the inner loop, we return scalene. Okay. And that's it. That's all we do on that one. Again, the enums are a little bit weird. So let me do this. And I will say that the W wall is not a bad thing to put. Okay. I spelled that incorrectly. But let's look what it said. Okay, this is interesting. So if I just did it this way, just the G++, the dash O is not going to matter. It's only going to give me that I said that there's a case isosceles, but I spelled it wrong, so there's not. Okay. But if I do it with a wall, it also tells me that I have an enumeration value isosceles, but it wasn't handled in the switch. So that's a warning. Okay. So that the wall is helpful. Okay. It helps us to tell stuff. Okay. So isosceles is, I'm spelling it SOS. There's an S in there that I didn't type correctly. Okay, let's try it now. So using the wall just gives us an extra chance. Everything's good. No errors, no warnings. Again, with the warnings that show up in pink, at least on my screen, your program will still run, but there may be some issues. Okay. If you have enumeration and you do a switch, you pretty much always want to check for all of those cases. Okay. So I'm just going to run this. I'm not doing the dash O, and I should, but I'm not. Okay. So if I do a 10, 1, 1, that's not a triangle, which is correct. Okay. Let's try an isosceles, 5, 5, 5. Yep. Or an equilateral. Yep. That's equilateral. Okay. To make sure you've got things working well, I like to do 7, 4, 7 for my isosceles, and it found it. Okay. And then I like to do 3, 4, 5 for which is the right triangle, but it's not anything but a scalene. Okay. So I'm confident mine's working, and we're good to go. Okay. So yours doesn't look to have to look exactly like this, but this is a solution to this problem. Okay. So if you have questions, make sure you let me know. It's important. We're coming up on the midterm next week. It's important that you understand these programs.